So first, let's revisit what happened on Friday night between Alyssa Thomas and Afisa Collier in those last 30 seconds of the fourth quarter. Sabrina, give us a rundown. Walk us through this play. What exactly happened?
All right, so Nafisa Collier inbounds the ball to Natisha Heidemann. T basically pitches it right back to Collier. Alyssa Thomas reaches across Collier's body and strips the ball cleanly without touching Nafisa Collier before she touches the ball. But as she goes for the ball, now that it's loose, her and Fee's lower bodies collide, and Fee ends up injuring her ankle in the process as Alyssa Thomas goes down the other end for the essentially game deciding score there.
We should say, the NBA referee's Twitter account came out in a unprecedented, I would say, gesture and weighed in on this play, saying that this was all caps not a foul. And they said that Thomas established legal guarding position and knocks the ball loose prior to the contact, and that then the leg-to-leg contact that you're talking about, Sabreena, was incidental once the ball is loose, and that as a result, the call is correctly judged in real time. But then there was this debate then about incidental versus marginal, because clearly there is significant contact that is made when two of the players collide. And it sparked this whole conversation about broader freedom of movement and what is the right of the offensive player and what is the right of the defensive player, because that seems to be this big hang up that I think has been sparked off this is, it's come to light that offensive players seem like they're very limited sometimes in how they can maneuver around the court. I don't know how else to say it. The WNBA rulebook gets into guarding an opponent. They have these rules on screening. They have rules on dribbling. And it just seems like the style of play right now, and this is what a lot of coaches have talked about, not that it favors the defense, but it certainly does not favor the offensive player maneuvering around. And that, I think, is the real hang up that this play will get remembered for as much as anything else right now.
I really
Now,
liked Becky Hammon's comparison to football. Like, if a receiver is going for a catch and the DB is also trying to get to the ball, like, if the ball is still in the air, the defensive back can't just clobber the, the receiver to get to the ball, right? Like, if it's a loose ball, you still have to maintain guarding position throughout. And I think that was Becky Hammon's point was, like, now that the ball is clear, that doesn't mean that, one player should be allowed to just run through the other player. And her quibble with incidental contact was, I thought, really interesting because she's like, I mean, if you think about it, most fouls are incidental. Like, you're not trying to foul the other person. So are we just supposed to rule that all those fouls are not fouls because they're incidental contact? Which, honestly, good point. But yeah, I think the idea of like what should be allowed here versus what was actually allowed is something that has come up a lot in these last 48 hours or so.
There's both the kind of micro conversation about rules and enforcement. There's a broader conversation about inconsistency in officiating, which we have seen, repeatedly over these past couple years. And then there's these systemic questions that a lot of people in the league and around the league are also asking. What impact does longtime WNBA officials or potential WNBA officials moving on to the NBA have on the quality of WNBA officiating? What impact does salary information, and I should say, there's not so concrete data out there, a ton of concrete data as to the pay discrepancies, but we do know certainly that officials who officiate WNBA games, they're only doing it for half the year and they're getting paid less than an NBA official who's doing it the entirety of the year, right? That's another big question. There's a question about, the training systems, right? We've had some of these conversations before, and all of these things are getting brought up right now, but it is, I think one of my big questions going forward, and the WNBA has these competition committee meetings in November, as they normally do after the season, is does this incident with Cheryl Reeve, will it be the thing that really sparks the most change that so many people around the league have been calling for? Or is the NBA and the WNBA, the people at the top of officiating, are they going to say, well, our data, which we collect, suggests X, Y, and Z. We don't think we have a problem. Because I think then it goes back to the classic maxim of like the first step in admitting that first step in
solving a problem
is admitting you have a problem, right? Like, is any progress going to be made if the league doesn't admit that they have something they need to reevaluate? I think a lot of people around the league want to know the answer to that question too.